Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're ready to start. This is the Town of East Fishkill Planning Board meeting of October 11th, 2022. Will everyone please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The upcoming meeting dates are November 10th and December 20th of 2022. We have minutes from the meeting of September 13th, 2022. If everyone's had a chance to review those, I'll accept a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. We'll do the roll call starting with Don.
Don Pappy, present.
Richard Campbell.
Lori G.
John Eichman.
Craig Arco.
Ed Miyoshi.
Sarah Bledsoe.
I do want to make one announcement before we get started. Hudson Valley Logistics Center is on the agenda for a continuation of their public hearing. They are making a few changes to the project, and so they will not be presenting tonight. So we will further adjourn that public hearing to the date of November 10th, our very next meeting. If anybody's here for Hudson Valley Logistics Center, we will be further adjourning that. First item on the agenda is Morrow Crane. Is there anyone here for the applicant? If not, this is a fairly simple matter. They are requesting 2 6-month extensions. I think they are still working with the DEC on some environmental matters, and I know they're eager to get started. Hopefully it'll be sooner than the 2 6 months. If there's no objection, I'll go ahead and offer a resolution. Name of site plan, Morrow Crane. Name of applicant, Morrow Equipment Company, LLC. Resolution offered by Planning Board member John Eichman. Whereas the Morrow Crane site plan was granted site plan approval for a proposed 26,000 square foot building and storage yard for the assembly, maintenance, and distribution of mobile industrial cranes on May 18th, 2021. And whereas the applicant is working on resolving permitting conditions with regards to New York State DEC. Whereas the applicant is requesting 2 6-month extensions for a total of 1-year extension that would extend from May 18th, 2022 to May 18th, 2023. Now therefore be it resolved that the Planning Board hereby extends final site plan approval for the above project as represented on the map entitled Morrow Equipment New Building prepared by LADA PC Land Planners dated October 30th, 2020 and last revised 3/30/21. And be it further resolved that within 5 business days of the adoption of this resolution, the chair or other duly authorized member of the Planning Board shall cause a copy of this resolution to be filed with the town clerk and a copy sent to the applicant owner. Could I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. So we'll vote by roll. Lori G.
Aye.
Ed Miyoshi.
Aye.
Sarah Bledsoe.
Aye.
Craig Arco.
Aye.
Richard Campbell.
Aye.
Donald Pepe.
Aye.
And John Eichman. I'm an aye. It carries. Okay, next item on the agenda is JG and TL Holdings, LLC.
Hi,
Good evening.
how are you? Amy Bombardieri with Diane Stokosa for the applicant. JG and TL Holdings is in the R1 zoning district on 416 Shenandoah Lane. It's a 3-lot proposed subdivision. It meets all zoning requirements. There's 1 flag lot, but the flag portion of the lot meets the minimum requirement for area. The side yard portion of the existing home is going to be demolished, so that won't be a variance requirement. The driveways have been discussed and reviewed by the highway superintendent, including driveway culverts for drainage. There's an existing swale along the shoulder now, so when the driveways go in, the culverts will be underneath the driveway. So right now I am just requesting that we schedule a public hearing for the subdivision.
So are there any questions by board members? I have some questions. I believe you've met with the town professionals somewhat recently and had met earlier as well. And I have some memos from Michelle Robbins that there are some variances that would be required even if these were not considered all flag lots.
They're not all flag lots.
Okay,
Only one is.
okay, but do we meet all of the requirements?
Well, once
or are
we-
there some variances necessary?
Once we demolish the portion of the house that would be in the side yard, that will meet the side yard requirement for that parcel. There's a pre-existing nonconformance in the front yard, I believe. Does that sound right? The existing garage is within the 100-foot setback from Route 84. That would be the other variance that would be required.
So I'm, again, referring to a memo, it indicates lot number 1 does not have 50 feet of frontage, and the pole width is not 50 feet of the entire length. Has that been corrected?
Yes, it's been corrected.
Okay. And lot number 2 is not 1.5 times the area of the required lot size without the pole, and the buildable area is less than 1 acre.
Lot number 2 is not a flag lot. It has the minimum frontage and the minimum lot width.
Okay, so I'm a little unfamiliar with the regulations. Can one of the professionals help out here? Or do we think we've met all of the requirements?
I don't have room.
Well, I think Michelle's point is because one house falls behind another house, that kind of maybe falls within the intent of a flag lot, but I think technically, from a technical standpoint, it's not a flag lot, so I think that's been her concern. And just on that point, as far as the orientation of the house, there's a concern because it's not facing Shenandoah Road directly, but at an angle, it could lead to future problems in terms of side yard, where's the pool going to be, where's the shed going to be, things of that nature, that we may be inherently kicking that can down the road. So I think that needs to be tightened up as part of this. Where can you put the shed? Where can you put the pool? What really is the side yard? What really is the front yard? It's tight.
The houses are not located behind one another as it would be in a traditional flag lot, where you would have the driveway portion and then the house would be behind the house in front of it. The way it's orientated now, that's not the way it lies.
Okay. So you're requesting a public hearing
I am.
be scheduled. Does anybody have any questions or comments before we actually get to that?
But it sounds like you also need the referral, right, for the variance? Because minimally, you said you're going to have a persistent variance with the 100-foot setback with 84?
It's a pre-existing nonconformance, yes.
But with the development, you're going to have to get it approved as a variance, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
So our next step is to refer this to
Right.
zoning?
The garage.
Correct, you would set the public hearing here and could refer it to the zone.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
So I think, we'll go ahead and refer you to the zoning, but we will also then schedule the public hearing. And in the meantime, you can go through to the zoning board to
Okay.
get that taken care of?
Yes.
Okay?
and if you decide to do whatever you might do that waives the need for the zoning board, at least you have the referral right now, so
If we don't,
continue to move forward.
Okay.
If you don't need it, that's fine. but
great.
You'd have to revise the plans, though, to not need it.
Right, so the applicant just said he would take the garage down, so if that's the case, we'll show it as being demoed.
Okay.
Got it. So could I have a motion to refer this applicant to the planning board?
Zoning board?
Zoning board, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, could I have a motion to schedule a public hearing for this applicant for our November, will you be ready for the November 10th meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so a motion to schedule the public hearing for November 10th?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
But if you do have to go to zoning, is that going to give enough time
Yeah,
to finish the zoning process? Because isn't that usually a 2-meeting process?
If we need a public hearing with that.
So we might have to adjourn the public hearing.
So-
We can start it, but you'd have to have your zoning approval right before we can finish.
I'll discuss it with the applicant and then let you know,
Okay,
or let the consultants know.
got it. So I think that'll take care of us. We may have to adjourn the public hearing from November 10th to the following meeting, but at this point, we've got things scheduled for you.
I like it.
Next item on the agenda is Special Subdivision.
Oh, I have hope on market.
I apologize. I tell you what, guys, this is a tough evening for me, apparently.
Doing great.
But thank you. It takes a team. Next item on the agenda is Hopewell Market.
Hi. Hopewell Market is the existing site across from Mike Gillespie's office, next to the Brookmead Plaza office. There is a single-family residential home, 2 bedrooms, located on the parcel, and there's also a mixed-use building located on the parcel. The first floor is commercial, and the second floor is an existing 1 2-bedroom apartment on the second floor. The parcel is located in the B1 zoning district. The square footage for the commercial use is 800 square feet. The only proposed improvements to the site are pavement striping, potentially installing additional parking area behind the current paved area, and then making exterior improvements to the residence. So that would be siding, a new roof, and new windows. And then proposed plantings, I saw a memo today, I have to show site lighting. We have snow storage, we have a small refuse enclosure. It's, we're thinking roll-out bins probably is all they're gonna need. I showed a traffic movement through the parking lot with a larger size non-commercial vehicle. There's a loading zone. We have health department approval for the existing septic system with conditions. The site can't be a public water supply, but the proposed market is only proposed to sell dry goods and refrigerated items. There's no food preparation, no coffee, no tea. There are currently 8 spaces required based on the uses. I'm showing 6 with 2 additional spaces banked in the rear. I don't know if they'll definitely be required. If the board would like me to put them in, that's fine, but because it's residential and commercial, I'm thinking that there might be space for a shared parking arrangement.
We're just talking the commercial building, or we're talking commercial and the house?
And the house, both. It's the same site, so
Okay, so how many parking spots are you gonna have for the house?
it'll be 2.
Okay, and then the commercial side? Because that's a tight,
Yeah.
and a lot of coverage of blacktop already on that property.
So right now I can get 6 spaces on the site with the 2 extra proposed as banked in the rear. There's room to put more than 2 extra, so could even put 2 in and put 2 more banked.
And what about in the front? Are they going to eradicate? I know there's like sitting area, there's something going on out front there that
There's bollards out front on the roof,
Yeah.
when it was an
Yeah.
ice cream shop.
are very,
Right.
almost too close to the road, if you ask me.
There is no intent to remove that at this point. I mean, the bollards probably should be there because of the,
They exist, but it just,
I think one of the questions, Amy, though, is it looks, even from the map that was presented, that it's within the New York State DOT right-of-way.
so it may be,
So at a minimum, if that's going to remain there, there's going to have to be, you're going to have to show evidence of a use and occupancy permit from the DOT for that to remain.
we're not married to them. So they could be taken out. I mean, if they are, there was a,
I mean, are you aware if there is any permit from the DOT for that?
I don't know that there is. I talked to Dan Pizzarelli, who was the owner of Rita's, and Rita's made him put it in. I don't know if there was a DOT permit or not. I can look into it, though.
Okay.
I think with regard to the parking, I think Mr. Campbell, was, Mr. Arco, I'm sorry, mentioned about the parking. And I know Michelle and I were looking at it today, and we were thinking more like 9 or 10 spaces versus 6 or 8. You've got a 2-bedroom apartment upstairs. That could easily be 2 cars. You have a 2-bedroom house or a 3-bedroom house?
2-bedroom.
So that could easily be 2 cars. That's 4. You have employees, that gets you to 5 or 6. And then you've got 800 square foot of retail. So that would easily put you around 10 spaces. And then in addition to that, who's fighting for what spaces?
So if we're not going to use shared parking, then there will be designations for residential spaces, either pavement markings or signage.
So again, I think right now you're showing 6, and I might,
8, 6.
wait, not quite sure how you even got 6 unless one's behind the other one.
The 2 parallel, there are 2 parallel spaces behind the building at the edge of the
But
pavement.
don't they abut each other end to end?
Well, they're parallel spaces, like
Side by side or end to end?
end to end.
So didn't seem enough room for
They're like 22 feet.
the first car to get into that space.
They're 22 feet long, I think. I mean, there is room to move things around, and there is
I'm
additional
just
space.
saying, I think parking needs to be looked at.
Right.
Okay.
And have you thought about putting a couple of those residential spaces behind the house?
That could possibly
Most on
work,
the side.
yeah.
That's where you have your dumpsters now?
That's behind the commercial building, the dumpster. But behind the house, there may be space.
And did you mention shared parking, or you're not looking at that?
Well, if that's not, I did mention it, but if it's not going to work, it's not going to work.
Right.
I mean, maybe we could put the 8 in and see if we need, and bank a couple more and see if we, I mean, there's room to move spaces around, so.
I don't know that we want to be chasing that and enforcing that.
I think we'd prefer, if you're going to go ahead and create spaces, let's go ahead and create 10. Since that looks like what's really required.
Okay.
I did see a version, I think, of your drawings that showed some diagonal spaces on the side.
Angled, yeah.
And there was a question of whether you could get fire trucks and delivery trucks and things through there with those angled spaces.
I show the van turning movement around the building, so it doesn't interfere with the parking spaces or the loading dock or the emergency stairs. I can run a fire truck around. There is room to pull up in front, even with the bollards, I think, so.
Have you spoken to anybody from the fire advisory?
No, I haven't.
Might make some
They
sense.
should take a look at this.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, I mean, even if they have to maneuver, I think you want to show that you can get in there and get, I mean, they want to be able to get to the back of the building if necessary, or to the side of the house, since there's going to be 2 dwellings there, or 2 buildings. The other thing, just a question with regard to the rationale for a van. I mean, if it's, I mean,
It was a bigger, non-commercial vehicle.
but what about whatever they're going to sell in deliveries and things like that?
So the loading dock, or the loading space is there, that would accommodate large.
They're not going to circulate, they're going to back out onto.
I'll do the circulation for you.
And also, I think the first parking space, if somebody's backing up, somebody's pulling in, there's a conflict. That first diagonal space.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, just got to look at it. If you're going to relay it out, I mean, try to, I don't know if you can realize more parking in the rear of the building as opposed to those angled spots, because, I mean, it does look like you're creating some, like,
Isn't there
a
space
conflict
behind
area.
there, though?
Behind the building there are some septic components that we have to stay away from, but there is room, that's why.
There was a hatched area on the plan, which
That was a no parking space.
no parking
That
space.
large area?
Yeah,
It was like, it didn't have like it had just like a random
Like a
geometry. It
Velcro
didn't seem-
door or anything?
zigzag.
it was
It
next
was
to
like
the,
honeycomb pattern on it.
oh, that's the snow storage.
Oh,
Oh, so- okay.
I guess this must have been parking here, I don't know. For
Okay.
Is this also a change of use, or is it?
I don't think it is, personally.
It used to be a store years ago.
Right, it's a B1 use. It's so under, even, it's been, since I've been there, around the Ritas, which I consider, basically, it's a retail, right? And then the tattoo shop is also, it's a personal service, which is in the same block of the schedule of permitted uses in the B1 district. So I think, tattoo shop to a market, yes, that's different.
I'm not
but-
saying it's not a permitted use, I'm asking if this is considered a change of use, because usually the change of use is triggered when the parking is different or other things are changing about the use of the property. I'm not questioning the permitted use.
Yeah, but, so it is,
It's just a matter of we would formalize that, that's why I'm asking.
yeah.
So for the information of the rest of the board, there is no prior site plan that has ever been approved for the property. After a diligent search, none was found.
No
but
use.
But notwithstanding that fact, I think we can consider this, if everyone agrees, to be a minor change.
Yeah.
I just want to just add one more thing. The prior uses, I think, was ice cream, which I would say is typically an afternoon or evening peak. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was a tattoo, which again, don't know if anybody's getting up at 7:30 in the morning to get a tattoo, but maybe. But I know at Van Wyck, if anyone's familiar, it's a zoo over there in the morning. And being that this is a market that I would think is going to be open at that hour, I think there could be some new operational factors to consider.
Sorry. It was a deli before, I think it was Rita's also.
Yeah, about 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Back when
It was
I in
Harry's Deli.
junior high.
So Amy, you said there's also a residential component with that?
Above it.
Above, and there's, so the residential house is on the same parcel.
Right, I'm just thinking back, my father-in-law used to own a general store that had the house connected to the general store. So it was in an R1 district, but he had the exception for the store. After 1 year, that business part of it, the zoning goes away.
This is a B1 district.
Okay,
It is a permitted use in the district.
okay.
Okay, so,
Yeah, the thing about a B1 district, I think you're permitted a caretaker unit, right? One caretaker unit? So yeah, I think you have a pre-existing non-conforming component to this, that once you revisit the site, I don't know how that plays out.
So which one's considered the caretaker unit?
Usually the one above.
Normally
One
the one
above it?
You might be
connected
able to
above it.
identify that.
It has to be connected, right, in the caretaker situation? Or can it be a separate?
Joe's Mother's Road, we had it as a separate house, but that was a larger parcel, right?
Yeah. Yes.
I think it could be either.
well, you do have some additional work to do on the layout and show parking and circulation of fire equipment. And perhaps maybe take a look at some of the questions that were raised here regarding prior use and times of day of operations.
Okay.
Okay?
So since this is a type 2 action, is there a possibility of waiving the public hearing?
Let me take a poll of the rest of the board.
Well, are we considering it a minor change, or?
I think I could go with the fact this is a minor change.
I have a question on the edge of the blacktop. I mean, can you extend that so you could put more parking? Because you have a drawing.
Behind the building?
Yes.
Yes.
So you would be able to get.
There is room to do that back there, yes.
I mean, I don't know if you have to blacktop it, but wouldn't there be more space back from what you now have as the existing edge of the blacktop?
So yeah, I'm actually showing 2 spaces back there with a drive aisle and a turning area to back up and pull out. But there is room back there, but there are septic components that we have to make sure we're avoiding.
I see.
So,
There's a thought.
So does everyone on the board agree this is a minor?
I just would like to ask, based on the bollard situation that you discussed, but, I opened it up for the discussion, would that, being that she has to go have that discussion with DOT, does that change this thing from minor to,
Well, I think DOT
they're
is
in
going
the
to take a look at the
ROW.
entrances, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to take a look, I mean, I think they're going to have to take a look at the site. I don't know if it, I mean, since it has been there for a while, I mean, it's, I mean, I don't know whether they've known about it or not, or whether there is some potential that it was permitted, but you know, we'll have to find out that answer. You know, until we know whether there's a permit or not.
But
Perhaps
Brendan,
the
you're saying
board-
you think it might be in the right of way, right?
Well, according to
That
the
would
map
be
that was.
outside the
is
site
in the
plan
right.
technically
Yeah.
anyway, right? It wouldn't be
But
part of the
perhaps
site.
what you should do is wait for the revised plan to come back.
Exactly.
See how it works out, and then make your decision about whether
okay.
what's been done is
That's what
minor
I'm-
or major.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not
Okay.
ready to commit.
Excellent suggestion. So Amy, can we see you next meeting? With
Yes.
answers to the questions?
Yes,
Great.
I just had one
I
other
do.
question.
Okay.
Is there going to be seating in front of the building, in front of the market?
seating, not if there's no bollards.
Okay, because that's why the bollards were put in, because the seating was there for the ice
Yeah,
cream shop.
and it's
Correct.
pushed right up against the road.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's important. Is there going to be seating in front of the market?
Not without-
It's going to be used.
It wouldn't be safe to have it there without bollards.
Correct.
No seating. There's a potential for, well, there's an application at the building department to make improvements to the house that is kind of being held up right now because of this process. So the applicant wants to put new siding on the house, new windows, and a new roof, and running out of weather.
You're not changing the footprint of the house? or
No,
anything, like
just-
nothing structural?
Literally just those three things.
Can we just make a
I
motion
don't know,
to allow
I mean, I know that's not a planning board decision, but if there's any way, we could move ahead with that. Just those three things.
So I'll accept a motion to permit the improvements that are proposed to the house, being siding,
Correct? Windows
windows,
and roof.
and roof.
And no change to structure, height, width.
Correct. There will be change to plantings in the spring, not now, obviously.
Okay.
But no structural changes.
Okay, would anybody like to make that motion?
So moved?
Second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great,
So I'll see you next month.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. And now, on to Special Subdivision, if I said that correctly.
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening, Bill Poval. I'm the engineer for the applicant, Salvatore Speziali. He owns an 18.1 acre parcel, which is on the south side of Route 52 between Carpenter Road intersection and 216. Right now, there's an existing house with an existing barn on the property. And what we're looking to do is to create a two-lot subdivision, which would create a lot for the existing house, which would be about 1.6 acres. And that would allow him to build a second house on the second lot, which would be next to the barn. So this is the existing barn here. This is the proposed house. This is the existing house. Right now, there's an existing gravel driveway, and what he'd like to do is use that as a shared driveway. It would need to be widened to meet the town width requirements for a shared driveway. And that would be about 2 feet on each side would need to be added to create the 16 feet. So with that, there wouldn't be any new driveway entrance onto 52. And the new house would be supplied water by a new well and a new septic system for the sewage.
It's an 18-acre parcel. Is there any further subdivision intended or able to be done in the future?
There's no planned subdivision in the future. The majority of the property in the back is DEC wetlands, according to the mapper. There is floodplain in the rear of the lot. There is a flood area in the front yard of the existing building. So this property would...
Existing house or the barn? Sorry.
Here's the existing house, here's 52.
Yep.
So when you look at the floodplain, it's right there in front. So
Okay.
there's shallow flooding. Yep. So given the parameters or the existing conditions on the lot, it doesn't really lend itself to subdivide this into a big subdivision. There's a lot of restrictions.
And every existing structure that you show on there is not going to be, nothing's going to be eradicated, everything's going to remain?
It's all going to remain.
All the setbacks are met, no variances needed?
Nope, everything meets all the requirements of the zoning, which is R1. And there's plenty of room for this project. There's a lot of flexibility.
Our planning department tried to determine if the setbacks were adequate, and they weren't able to tell, and we were wondering if that's something you might be able to have surveyed to show, the distances for the setbacks on the outbuildings?
We did include those on the plan.
They are included? Okay.
Yep.
Got
The
it.
shed, for example, I think was 12.9 feet. Actually, it's on this plan. 12.3 feet.
Isn't it
That's
20?
really the closest structure to the property.
But wouldn't that be a 25-foot requirement? Or 15, okay.
Okay, that must be pre-existing non-conforming, the shed.
But you're creating a new lot with that shed on it, so it either has to be removed.
Well, that shed, if need be, that shed could come down,
Or be moved,
or we could move it,
okay.
or sure.
Okay. The other thing that we need to ask you to show is that a driveway could be created for the second lot.
If that's not a problem,
And that's something that you just need to show in the plan.
for sure.
Just on the subject of the driveway, since you're proposing to make it a shared driveway for two houses, you would have to get an approval from the DOT for that, to see how it was configured, and that they were happy with that. And, I don't know if it's gravel all the way to the highway, but, their requirements are certainly to have a paved apron, so I think you're going to have to deal with that.
Understood.
Are there any other questions or comments by board members or
I
professionals?
guess the last thing I would ask, in keeping with what he was saying about the driveway, is as far as access, fire access, and all those safety access back to there, once you've added to get to the new house and, the existing structures, has there been allowances made for that?
Yes, right now there's an existing driveway with a turnaround area by the existing house, and then there's an actual driveway that goes to the barn, and there's actually a whole turnaround.
Up there.
And that all exists right now. We're not proposing to change that. So maneuverability within the two lots would be very good.
Christian, you had something?
Yeah, regarding the base flood elevation, this property is in a Zone A, which is an approximate zone. Minimal development looks like it's proposed within the zone. The town should determine whether or not a floodplain development permit is required under section 108-11. And also regarding the limits of the floodplain, it's a Zone A, and I'm assuming that you trace it over from parcel access or FEMA maps. The question we have is what the elevation of the base flood elevation is, because that may determine whether or not you have enough minimum building area for lot one. You need 3/4 of an acre, and depending upon where the line's drawn, I think you're like 0.751 acres for lot one. Depending upon the elevation of the base flood, it's shown drawn at around elevation 309 in the back, around 307 in the front, depending upon where you go. So I think that's a little bit too close to make a determination of whether or not you actually have the buildable area. So we would ask that that be nailed down.
And that's something we can do. When I showed the floodplain on this map, I actually was more conservative. It was about at the 306. and I bumped it up near the 308 just to be conservative, because I knew I had to meet the threshold for the environmentally sensitive lands area.
And we just want to make sure, because that lot one is so right on the threshold, we just want to make sure, and also to determine what the base flood elevation is, to make sure that the lot that's being created, if that is sufficiently above the BFE. They showed the approximate limit of the DEC wetland behind. We asked the town to determine whether or not a field delineation of that wetland is warranted or not. And Brandon mentioned the DOT to review the location of the driveway, and we just had additional, minor comments regarding the plan set.
Anything else from board members or professionals? If not, I think there's just a few things to clarify and
Well, I guess one question would be if we need to go through the whole exercise of getting the wetlands mapped out in the back. It's a few hundred feet. It's definitely in excess of 200, 250 feet from the back of the barn. When I went out and walked the property, I did show the wetlands per the general mapping that DEC, puts out there publicly. But we did not physically locate the wetland boundaries. So I think your question is whether or not the board is going to require us to do that.
what is our standard when things are that close? Does anybody?
Well, I think in this case, where they're showing the wetland, unless it can be determined that the wetland is actually closer by a good margin to where the proposed improvements are going, the base flood elevation would probably determine your minimum buildable area for lot 2. So I think it's really a judgment call for the board as to, they're not proposing to do anything back there. I don't know if a site visit would be warranted, or, there is a stream goes through the property, but I would defer to the,
And where we're proposing the house in the septic system is 2 feet higher in elevation at its lowest point than the existing house. So that's another added comfort level, knowing that, that area would not be in the wetlands for a good portion.
So could it be made like from a conditional standpoint?
And
if the board determines that a delineation isn't required, then they wouldn't need to require it.
How old is the current flood mapping? Or has it never been flagged?
Well, the wetlands, I don't believe were ever flagged. It's just general mapping that DEC offers.
So that changes, doesn't it, over time?
Where we're proposing the house and the septic is a lawn area that's maintained.
Currently lawn, you're saying?
Right. So if you look at this map, here's the proposed house, here's the septic. The light green area is the lawn, and that's the existing tree line in the back.
And the dark line is the flood zone?
This dark line is the line that we placed on the map from the
Estimated.
FEMA map. And then the wetland line from that is back here. So this is where the wetland boundary is when we overlaid it on this parcel. So that's 100 feet. Then it's another 100 feet to where we're proposing the septic system. It's in the one area. And then it's almost 300 feet. And it's actually past the barn where we're proposing the house.
So I, for one, wouldn't ask the applicant to do anything further with regards to that. Seems reasonable. Is there anyone that objects to that on the board?
How do you get the base flood elevation if you don't map it?
They would have to contact FEMA, and FEMA might have the information vertically to establish what the BFE is. It's a very large approximate zone. It goes, when you look at the map, it goes 3 or 4 properties off to the northeast, and it covers a very wide area, so it's generally probably going to be very flat. They don't have a detailed study area probably for at least half a mile to a mile further downstream. So they would have to contact FEMA to get that determination and make sure the topographical survey is on the appropriate vertical datum.
Have you done any perk test or anything there?
It's all gravel,
It is.
bank run, yep.
Any further thoughts by board members?
I think as long as you can establish the base flood elevation, I'm okay with.
So if you can come back with that, as
Okay.
well as the other information.
Is there any way to schedule a public hearing at this point?
I think there is. Without objection, we can go ahead and schedule that public hearing. I'll accept a motion. Will you be ready in November?
I'd like to, when's the meeting in December?
Just, the December meeting is on December 20th.
Could we do it for that meeting? Because I'm going to be out of town on the
Certainly.
November 10th.
Certainly, that'll give you plenty of time to
Then that'll give
do
us a
some of
month.
the other work.
Exactly.
Okay. I'll accept the motion to schedule a public hearing for the applicant for our December 20th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda, Sadis Rivas. This is for an installation of solar system.
Hello, how are you?
Great.
I'm with Empire Solar. I'm here on behalf of the homeowner. So we're proposing to install 2 ground-mounted solar arrays on a residential lot. The total system size is 30.24 kilowatts, but it'll be tied to 2 meters. That does exceed the residential limit, but the system will be separated into 2 separate Central Hudson residential meters. I am honestly not quite sure what specifically the board would want to know about this project in order to move it forward, other than what was already highlighted in the plans. So if there are any specific questions that the board has,
Does the board have ability to waive the residential requirement or allow it to be exceeded? I don't think we've had this come up before, have
If
we?
permitted, usually it's a review to see the location of them and with respect to the residents, the boundary lines.
Well, we did
Visually.
just get zoning approval last month because the property is just over 7 acres, but it's a very narrow, long property. So we had to get a variance for the setback requirements. Page 2, I believe, of the plans shows the boundary lines with the setbacks that were approved by the ZBA. I'm sorry. So instead of 100 feet, at the north, we have 91 feet, 2 inches, and 88 feet, 5 inches. On the southern property line, we have 67 feet and 10 inches and 69 feet, 7 inches respectively. So considering that the property is so narrow, the zoning board did acknowledge that
Do you
that
have a
was.
plan you could show the board here? Ellen?
I don't have a big board. Would you like to see this?
Not me.
We'll bring it up to the
Yeah, we
board
can
if
take a
you
look
want.
I thought you guys all got copies.
Sure.
There's some along the road here.
You have it.
So what is the reason that it's oversized for residential use?
It's split between 2 different Central Hudson accounts, so it's based on the annual average usage of those 2 accounts.
So it's a single-family home with 2 Central Hudson account?
I believe it is a residence with like an
accessory apartment or something?
yeah.
Okay.
Did you want to see?
So as a solar installation, we are required to schedule a public hearing as a planning board. I think it is a minor site plan, but we'll go ahead and schedule that public hearing. Will you be ready for that?
Yes,
In
absolutely.
November?
That's going to include notice to the neighboring properties. Are your neighbors aware?
Yeah, we're familiar with I think, well, they were notified for the ZBA public hearing.
Okay.
So,
And there was a sign placed on the property for that, so.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll accept a motion to schedule a public hearing for the applicant for our November meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Is there a site visit required, or is that just,
I'll leave that up to the pleasure of the rest of the board members. Does anyone need a site visit?
we did supply a lot of photos of the property with our application, so if anything was missing, we probably have additional photos that we could supply as well. But we would,
I don't think it-
I know that there's some, like, brush or shrubs in front of the property along Blue Hill Road there.
there is a decent amount of natural screening that's already existing there, so I
I'm
don't,
just wondering, you know, how visible they'd be from the road.
from the road, there might be like a blip while you're traveling on Blue Hill, coming from, I guess that would be from the south, traveling north.
It's gonna be once you pass the neighbor, you're gonna hit those trees.
Right.
And the only way you're gonna be able to see it is if you're looking like this.
Not paying attention to the road.
Shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, no, 'cause it looks like it's.
'Cause I did go
it's
there
set
myself
far
and take
pretty
some
back.
photos, so.
This is, you know, I know exactly where this is.
Yeah, so, and even the neighbor to, like the parcel to the north, I don't think there is a residence there. It looks like it's
If
just
there is, there's a
trees.
forest in between.
And the neighbor to the south, where the house is situated, there's no view from that residence
Right.
to the location, the proposed location.
Yeah, I think that house, I think the owner passed away over
that's
the winter,
unfortunate.
so that, you know.
There's
that
no
house is-
opinion.
I don't think that house is in use right now. but
Okay.
That could very easily change.
Do you talk about the house with the red roof on it in the
I
photo?
I believe so. I gave you my copy, so I don't have something to.
I'm looking at it, because it looks like they would have a direct view to the solar farm without any brush. There's the house, correct? The neighbor's house? This is off your drawings.
Okay, so, yeah, I guess that is the house.
Oh, so
well,
the only way that they can see it is from if they go out onto their back deck, I think they had a deck. Because I stood where the ground mounts were. They can't see it from the side windows, the brush is covering that. It's only from those back windows, you have to have your window open and your head sticking out. So, but we're more than willing to plant a few trees.
Yeah, I did come with a proposed vegetation plan, if that was of.
Can you show that to us?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do the plans show which direction the panels are angled? Are they angled toward the house or?
The way that you see them angled on here, this is directly
Gotta
south
face
facing.
south, gotta face south, yeah.
Yeah, we
So they're,
orient the ground mount. Sorry, can you-
Yes, and if you'd care to go back to the microphone, and we'll get that picked up for the people watching at home.
So to answer the question, the arrays are oriented south at 180 degrees. So the way that you see them oriented on the plans would be the way that they are installed.
I noticed on the submittal drawing versus the drawing you just handed us, you actually showed some trees along the property line to.
The one that I just handed out?
Yeah.
That was something we came prepared with because we basically wanted to get the board's opinion and input on whether or not screening was necessary.
We learned from other planning meetings.
Yeah.
Yes. So, one thing that we were considering and that we always consider when installing solar is if we are required to plant screening, if that would shade the array.
I was gonna say, you don't want trees that are gonna get too tall.
Right, so sometimes we do spruces, sometimes we do arborvitae, like some of them get too tall, and if the homeowners aren't equipped or able or willing to do the trimming to keep them, 6 to 8 feet, it can affect the production, so we try to steer away from it unless it's absolutely required. But we do understand that sometimes that is, to make it more
We have to make sure
aesthetic.
we're not impacting people's
Right.
view
Neighbor.
out their backyard, or when they're entertaining in their backyard, they have that right to do that.
Of course.
So, if you weren't opposed to putting some kind of trees, I'd love to see that on the blueprint. Trees on the line, I don't know how far away from the solar panels and what height restrictions you would have with that, but I would say also for the road, if there's any way that you're gonna see that from the road at any particular angle, I would say some kind of conifer, you know, something that's 365 days a year that.
Right.
it
Do you
blocks.
know your minimum height requirements for your town?
No, yes.
How tall are the arrays?
The tallest point at the top of the array is 12 feet max. Sometimes it's lower.
Okay, anything else by board members? We'll have an opportunity to.
I'm sorry, one
Go
more.
ahead.
You gave us a flood zone map,
Yes.
and is the light blue area that looks very close to the array, is there a required setback there, or is that,
We did not find any required setback in the code, nor did the zoning board have an answer for that either. However, if there is a required setback from the principal structure, I believe we do have space to shift it closer to the house if necessary, further away from the flood zone.
Michelle usually helps me know what to.
A setback from a flood.
Not that I'm aware of.
No, not that we're aware.
Okay.
There was a comment on the engineering comments that we received today, stating that because of its proximity to the flood zone, the electrical equipment should be located away from that, but all of our electrical equipment is either installed on the exterior of the house, interior of the house, or at the meter, which would include like the emergency disconnect switch, the inverters. Those are usually installed on the house opposite the wall where the service panel is.
Got it.
And the wires are underground?
Yes.
Yeah, regarding the base flood elevation, it's not so much a horizontal setback as it's a vertical separation. You know, just very similar to the last application we just talked about. It's an approximate zone A, so you don't know exactly what the elevation is. So whatever, whatever elevation you're going to set your electrical gear at, you want to make sure it's sufficiently above the BFE. I don't know if it's super critical that the base flood elevation be established for this, or whether this kind of falls under the town building department permit review. I just kind of make the statement because it was shown, right on the.
That's why I was asking if it even needed to be set back from the flood area, because one of them is sitting right on the edge, which may or may not be the current edge, right?
It's really, it's a line that's drawn based upon, probably old topography. The FEMA maps were updated back in 2012,
But
with additional studies.
the electrical work will all be inspected by the electrical underwriter. So the code, the National Electrical Code has provisions for these kind of situations
In flood zones?
in any wet area.
Yeah, all of our projects are inspected by a third party.
Got it. Okay.
You said the meter, inverter, the main disconnect switch was gonna be on the house, but you show it on a utility pole.
Well, the meter is not on the house. It's at the top of there's two driveways, one at the north side of the property and one towards the south. The meter is located at the top of the north driveway, which is, it's not always typical, but it's not unheard of for the meter not to be.
You said it was on the house, that's what I'm saying.
Well, the inverter will probably be on the house, but the disconnect we usually attach at the meter if possible for emergency situations, but if not for electrical, wiring reasons, it's on the exterior of the house.
Great, thank you.
Additional questions or comments? No. If not, we've established the public hearing date for you and look forward to seeing you back.
And that's the one that's on Thursday, right?
It's on a Thursday,
Yes.
same time, 7 p.m.?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Who would we contact about the sign posting, like getting the sign?
The planning department, Jackie?
Okay. And does that also include the abutters list, or is that part of?
We have the
Okay,
abutters list.
it's 500?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that was part of our application, so. Okay, and how soon before, it's 2 weeks before the 20 days? Okay. Great, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is iPark Building A. We previously adjourned a public hearing relating to the site plan. We now need to open a new public hearing to consider both the subdivision and the site plan. Is there anyone here for the applicant?
Doesn't look that way.
I think
Perhaps.
I think they're out in the lobby.
There's nobody
I saw
outside,
Troy
is there?
Wojciechowski outside, I think.
So, okay, so the applicant is present. So we'll go ahead and open a new public hearing for both the subdivision and the site plan approval. Could I have a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good evening.
Good evening. Joe Cotter from National Resources is on his way. I don't know if you can push anybody ahead of us in the agenda. Give him a little more time to get here.
I think Amy's prepared to come forward, so.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, he should be here very soon.
We'll temporarily delay your public hearing, but
Okay.
we'll go to Amy.
Thank you.
The Ferris Bridges subdivision, we adjourned that public hearing. I'll accept a motion to reopen that public hearing.
So moved.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing's open. So Amy, there were several questions, I think, that were still outstanding after our last meeting.
Yes.
And perhaps you could start by addressing those things if you don't mind.
So one of the questions I remember is the deed restrictions. There are no deed restrictions on this parcel. There was a number of concerns about drainage, and there have been proposed level spreaders to alleviate runoff from any impervious from the house site going towards Devon Farms. There's riprap swales going down both sides of the Lot 1 proposed driveway. That will enter into 2 new catch basins, which will then divert to an existing catch basin on the other side of Eder Road. It was mostly drainage stuff and clearing. The clearing is kept to a minimum here. It's really just around the driveways and the house sites. The owner is going to live in the house that's under construction now, and then probably build another house on one of the parcels. The remaining parcel, I'm not sure if he's going to sell as buildable parcels or actually just build on them and then sell houses. I know that was a question.
Did you make any changes to the plans or the drainage things since the last meeting that we should open?
Additional drainage was added around the houses, and so there's a level spreader from the roof leader on the proposed Lot 1. So that will level out and then should enter the swale along the driveway, which is also a riprap line swale, and then enter into the catch basins. The highway superintendent was also consulted on the drainage and the driveway locations, and he's fine with that. There is a proposed site distance easement along Eder Road to improve the site distance from the 2 driveways. So that will cut back the vegetation, and there may be minor regrading to improve the site distance there. But that is,
Does the plan actually show what the site distance is? I mean, it shows that easement, but I don't, we looked at the plan, I couldn't readily find the table.
it does show it on sheet 3. There's You have, the site distance to the left is 308.9, to the right is 315.2. And the vegetation to be removed from the town right-of-way.
What's going to be the scenario of maintaining that clearing?
What's going to be the scenario? That's probably the easement is there probably so the town can maintain the vegetation.
Is that something? You have to talk to highway about that.
I believe Kenny was involved in that. The highway superintendent was involved in that decision.
Brendan, is that sufficient?
Well, as long as he's willing to take on that responsibility of having to keep it clear.
That distance is sufficient?
Right. I mean, is there, you probably need something back from the highway superintendent with that understanding that he's going to, you're saying he's going to maintain that vegetation.
I don't actually know that for sure, but I assume that that's why there's an easement there so that it gives the,
So it's outside of the town right away, an easement on private property?
yes.
I don't know we're clearing that, highway's clearing that.
It's not very,
But because it's also for more than one driveway, the easement is so that it covers both driveways, right?
Sounds like.
We could do it if they don't,
there's a small portion of it on lot 4, most of it's on lot 3.
Some kind of,
but then it gets recorded, and who's going to follow that?
should create a district.
No, not district.
Is that something that we can add as a condition to the plan, perhaps? Confirmation of maintenance?
Well, usually what it would be is that the property owner would have to maintain it, and then upon their failure to do so, the town would have the right to do it and charge it back against the property owner.
Okay,
That's how we usually do these now.
got it.
That's how the stormwater agreements are.
Okay, so that's just understood.
I just want to add one thing about the drainage. I know you're tying into the town drainage across the street. Did you check those driveways just downstream across the street? Have you walked those?
No, I haven't. Brian did run the culvert based on the 10-year storm, though, for all the driveway crossings that are proposed, and then across the street, it's an 18-inch pipe on the other side that he's tying into.
Right. Well, across the street downstream, there are two driveways. One driveway, I think, has two 12-inch corrugated metal culverts, and there's another driveway, I think, maybe 18-inch. One driveway, I think the culverts are at their end of life or getting close to it. And, you know, the concern I have is any additional water that's discharged could impact those off-site driveways.
That's this direction, to the north?
Downstream. Heading down the hill.
Yep. So we'll look at that.
Because I think that's what the neighbors are going to say if their driveways fail, and I don't know that they're going to be satisfied with a 10-year analysis, because 10-year storms happen once a year or more. Seems like, anyway.
Any questions or comments by board members? If not, I'll open it up to the public. Are there any members of the public that are here to speak for or against the project? If you'd sign in, please, sir. Sure. Thank you.
My name is Richard Martin, 198 Devon Farms Road. I'm neither for or against the property at this point. I need some more information. I've heard a lot of speaking on drainage, and unfortunately, when you sit back here, we don't hear it as well as you guys hear it up there. And also, I don't have privy to the drawings when she's talking about lots. And I know one lot affects me on Devon Farms. I'd like to know about the drainage on that side of the road, and I would have to defer to the experts over here. I know nothing about this stuff. I know that when it rains up there, water comes pouring out of those woods down on our properties. And I've put 7 drains in myself. So my property is pretty well protected at this point. I'm very concerned about a clear-cut situation that abuts my property, because I get water out of there at a very good pace now with a ton of trees up there. There's basically a forest there. And if we cut all those trees out, I'm going to be underwater in seconds. So that's my primary concern. I have to rely on the experts here when they say, go back to this and go back to that, and we want them to have town. I don't know anything that you're talking about here. I do know that my property is in jeopardy, and I'm very concerned about the 15-acre parcel that butts up to Lot 37 on Squires Farms. If that thing is clear-cut, I'm underwater in a couple hours in a 10-year storm. So that's my concern. I'm neither for or opposed. I just have concerns about my pride. I don't want to be selfish, but, you know, I have to understand that I've got $1 million invested here. I got to protect that. So those are my concerns. If someone will answer them for me, I could tell you whether I'm yay or nay, but.
We'll collect the rest of the comments from the public, and then we'll ask Amy to come up and answer specifically those two issues for you.
Okay, thank you. The one other thing, and I don't want to be a pain in the neck. Last time we were here, we heard something about bats, and I didn't hear that mentioned tonight. So again, I don't want to be a pain in the neck. I just want to reference what was referenced in the original meeting on, I think the 13th or whatever it was last month.
Yeah, that has to do with when they can cut trees down with the bats.
Right. So, again, my biggest issue is...
That's not specific or unique to this property. It'll be a requirement for anybody doing any kind of tree cutting.
Right.
On a plan that we're approving. There's always going to be restrictions on the timing when they can do it because of the need to preserve bats.
That's not an issue for me. I don't care when, when they can do it. My biggest issue is a buffer between a clear cut and my property. And the same for the folks on Eder on the other side. I'm not exposed to that, but certainly I understand and sympathize.
I thought Amy mentioned early on that they weren't doing clear cut, but certainly she can respond to that.
I didn't hear that. I heard
detail.
kept to a minimal, which
kept to a
means
minimum.
nothing to me. What does that mean?
Based on where they're going to put the home and the driveway.
I understand.
Is the way it was stated.
I understand that, Mr. Campbell, but kept to a minimum could be 10 feet. It could be all 15 acres. I don't know what that means.
We'll allow Amy for the applicant to respond to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, what lot were you in Devon Farms?
37?
37, okay.
Are there other members of the public who have comments? One way or the other. Amy, could you possibly come up and go ahead and face the audience with regards to the questions of drainage, clear cutting, and bats?
Due to the bat population being in jeopardy, what are you at? We can only cut trees from November 1st through March 31st, so. The bats are not there those times, so they're safe. So you're concerned about this lot, right? This is lot 1, the big one. If this area here is very steep, to get machinery back there to cut or clear cut would be very costly and very difficult. So the clearing to get the house here, that's still going to provide you with approximately over 300 feet of separation.
Right, which when I look, could you tell me the building envelope is behind what on Squires Farms or Devon Farms?
37, 36, 35, 34, 33.
The actual building, the actual house site is not behind 37.
33.
Okay, so it's the 4 houses over, which is, of course, the portion of clear cut.
I don't know why somebody would spend the money to buy a parcel as isolated as this, just to clear cut and put their house right in the corner.
Because of the view. We can see.
Yeah, but they're so much higher than you, where they are now. So to go lower towards you would be.
Well, if there are 3 houses down from you, they're not higher than me.
They're at an elevation of, oh, I see, okay. They are lower, but.
So my concern is you're basically creating a flat lot.
No? Maybe.
Maybe not technically by the definition, but it's going to be behind someone else's home.
Very far away. So this is 1 inch equals 80, this scale.
300 feet is not very far away.
What's that?
300 feet?
This is 1 inch equals 80 feet. So that's about 10 inches. It's about 800 feet to your house, or to your lot. 800 feet is pretty far.
told me 300.
Well, I didn't realize that you were here and not here when I said that. But even that, I was wrong. That's probably more like 400, 500. It's also very, because of the steep slopes, it would be very difficult to build a house anywhere other than where we're showing it.
I appreciate what you're saying, but I was sold this bill of goods when I bought the house, both by the developer and the town supervisor of this town 18 years ago, that they could never build there because of topography, it would be impossible, but it's not impossible because here you are. And I understand you have every right in the world to buy property and do whatever is allowed by the town to do, and I don't dispute that at all. I'm just trying to coexist here. I have a beautiful forest back there that I paid handsomely for when I bought the property. And I'd like to continue the private life that I have there with the views that I have there. And then welcome you to coexist as long as, you're able to do that.
So, Amy, do I not recall that at our last meeting, I think we found in your application that the amount of tree cutting is really going to be fairly minimal compared to the size of that lot? Can you give us the data on that again?
Yeah, it is going to be minimal, but no, I can't give you the data, the actual number.
I think it was actually in the application.
The proposed limited disturbance is, it's less, I believe it's less than an acre on that lot. So out of 13 acres, it's not even 10%.
Not one of the questions that came up, though, was that the plan said it was like 0.3 of the total lot or something. Like, it didn't seem like a reasonable number, and that was one of the questions.
You're talking about the vegetation cover. That was what was noted in the EAF about what was forest and what wasn't forested. That was about the existing condition of the parcel.
Okay. Did we get an answer on that?
What's that?
Did we get an answer? Or was that verified?
I don't honestly know, sorry.
So it seems we still have questions about vegetation, tree cutting, and stormwater.
So the stormwater question about the culverts is, oh, right, that I have to. So you have runoff coming when it rains now. You have runoff coming towards you. So the way the topo works, it looks like everything's draining this way. So the way the house is constructed or proposed right now, the roof leaders are, and runoff from the driveway at that portion, are going to hit a level spreader, which is basically.
I'm not concerned about runoff of the actual home.
Okay.
Because that's down the mountain for me. I'm concerned that if you cut all those trees out, it's going to be right in my backyard, as you can see, the butts in the corner.
I would say I'm 99% positive all of these trees are not going to be cut down 800 feet to your house.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
But I'd like some reassurances on that.
How about do you want to put a bigger backyard envelope there or a clearing
Why don't you
restriction?
create an area of non-disturbance?
Yeah.
That there'll be no disturbance
That would
beyond a certain point, draw a line.
that would work, perhaps? You can
For this
determine where
builder
that line
or
would
in
be.
perpetuity?
In perpetuity.
Put it on the,
We've
put
done
it as deed restriction.
Conservation easement.
Yeah, area of non-disturbance.
You're making it hard for me.
Amy, I think actually the application indicated a pretty substantial limitation on that, so I think you could draw a line very easily that would
Okay.
be more than satisfactory to the neighbor.
And we'll put it on, it'll be on the map and then it'll be basically a deed restriction, right?
Agreement, right, that gets recorded.
Okay,
Okay?
good.
That's fine with me, as long as the expert panel would agree on your drainage issue with this. I'm fine, I don't know anything about that. So I'd have to
Well, she'll have to come back for that.
rely on the
Yeah.
engineer.
Well, what he's concerned about it running off through the property. And then what Scott mentioned was the culverts on the road.
Right.
So the runoff,
A different direction runoff.
what's that?
Different direction for the runoff.
The runoff from the house it doesn't look like it will affect his parcel, the way the topo is.
I would agree with that.
He agrees.
Is that something
And
that's
so
been
if enough
included?
of the rest of the property has a non-disturbance easement, which means no one can cut the trees down, that's, gives you comfort?
Okay, excellent. Other comments or questions by members of the public? Certainly, ma'am. Anybody should come up to the podium, please. Sign in.
Okay, my name is Iris Cabrera, and I live on 194 Devon's Farm. And I am one of the thousands of New City people that just moved up here. And when we moved up here, we researched our property. And we noticed that that land had just been purchased. So we asked, and because privacy was very important for us, and we were assured that no one will be able to build right behind us. And we thought that was great, you know. But now we see that anything can really change. So although you're saying it's hard to build back there, I feel that it's not actually impossible. So what can you do to assure us that there's not going to be any building back there? Because once they buy, they could do, you know, they could pretty much do whatever they want. Also, when we bought our house, there was a list of rules that we had to follow, like we couldn't park a truck in the driveway, or things like that. Would they have some kind of requirements where they can't put like a fence, or they have to be a certain distance from the property line and things like that?
Yes, there are restrictions on outbuildings, on fences, fence height, distances from side yards and front yards. Those things are all codified in the zoning code?
Well, I think she may be right, but I don't know, is this the upper part of Devon's Farm Road?
Yes.
Like when you go in, you go up?
Right behind us, it is very steep.
Is there a cul-de-sac with the water tank up?
No, we're not
Or are
by
you
the
in the lower
cul-de-sac.
part?
We're on the other side, yeah.
Okay. Was the upper side of Devon's Farm, when it was originally approved by the planning board, had a area of non-disturbance as a ring all around the property. It was done as a cluster subdivision. It was then that developer went bankrupt, and the lower part was then developed ultimately by Toll Brothers, I think, towards the end, and some local builders. I don't believe there's an area of non-disturbance in that part of it. So that's, I call the lower part of Devon's Farm Road. But other than that, you control
But
right
Tom,
to
some
your...
of those restrictions, like a truck not being able to be parked in
That's what I
a
was just
driveway.
going to say, that they're not,
Homeowners, right?
I believe what the chairman was referring to is the town zoning ordinance has certain limitations on what anyone in the town can or cannot do with respect to trucks, fences, things like that. But some developers, when they subdivide property, record restrictions that pertain specifically to all the lots of a subdivision. I don't know whether you're referring to them or the general ones, but certainly there are general ones in effect for everybody.
Okay.
But they may not be the same as the restrictions you have on your subdivision. That could be, like, usually the town code doesn't prohibit outdoor clotheslines, but private restrictions in most subdivisions do, so.
Yeah, because, you know, we just purchased a house, and we sacrificed a lot to purchase our house. And we, you know, this is our dream home. And everything was going great until we just got this notice, and all of a sudden, it's like one of our worst nightmares might be coming true, because we didn't want to have a construction zone right behind our yard. So, you know, looking at this now, I see that it doesn't really affect me at the moment, because the house that they're building is further down. But I just want to make sure that, you know, it's not going to be an issue later on in the future, because although you're saying right now they're not going to build, you know, someone crazy enough might want to come in and say, hey, I want a house here. So that's just one of my concerns. And I just want to also say that, you know, there's a lot of building going on. And the reason why I moved to East Fishkill is because I wanted to get away from the chaos of the city. I wanted my children to grow up in a quiet environment, surrounded by nature, and embrace nature, to get them out of the electronics, because nowadays, you know, they're just like stuck on their electronics. And, you know, over here I find it that they're able to go to the yard, embrace nature, and they're not disturbing anyone. And it's just sad to see that there's so much building going on. And it's sad because the more people you have here, the more problems you're bringing in. And I see a lot of the news, there's, cars being stolen from the home driveways. There's a lot of crime being picked up. And I hear a lot of people saying, oh, it's the city people that are coming from down there, And I understand, I don't take any offense by it because I get it, the city right now is a mess. And that's why we moved over here, because we wanted something quiet. And we wanted to be surrounded by nature. So, every time you approve a new home build, you're killing a part of East Fishkill. And it's sad to see all the trees gone. And I think that we should focus on building for the youth, for the teenagers. We should focus on giving them something to do, to entertain them, instead of them being on their electronics and going out there and causing trouble. Another point that I want to make is that, this is probably a little off topic, but, when we first moved here, there were 3 school threats in the high school. We received 3 emails for school threats, and that was just a shock to me because here I am moving my children and my family out of the city to get away from the crime and all that craziness. And as soon as I come here, there's a school threat at John Jay. And I think, what's going on is that teenagers don't have much to do here. They get bored and maybe they just, have this crazy idea. And it's unfortunate. So I think that we should really focus on building for the kids, give them an ice skating rink, give them something to do in town rather than, knocking down the trees and building all these houses and bringing all these new people into town and creating more of a problem. Okay?
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else here from the public? If you'd care to speak, come up and sign in, please.
Hi, how are you? Jean DeLeo, 546 Eder Road. So Amy, I just have a question for you. So last week, as you guys know, we had a ton of rain. So my husband we didn't do this on purpose, he was coming up the hill and saw the amount of water coming down Eder and coming sadly off this property. Now, I'm same as you, I'm not against it, not for it, but you mentioned you're putting more drainage in. I'm just wondering, he has a video here. Is it gonna take care of this amount of water? I don't know if you want to take a look at it. I just wanted to.
Where's your parcel?
We are right here, parcel 4. I think that's us right here. Yeah,
So
that's
it was
us.
coming down the road?
No, well, this is going down here. So it's
Okay.
down past the original Eder house. So this is coming
So we're putting in riprap swales that'll slow.
up there.
That'll slow the water down. It's all the way along Eder Road, in these parcels.
All right.
So that will slow everything down.
I just want to, Samsung, sorry.
I've seen water flow.
I know. So, but we took this, it was just such a tremendous amount. I just want to make sure, maybe this, you don't have anything to do with this part, but the amount of water was amazing coming down. And of course, here it turns, it's coming off of where they're doing the new construction, the new building. And you'll see as he gets up here towards Eder Road. Come on. Al, I hope this was the right one. No, it's not. Yeah, here, see, here it is coming over here. So here's Eder, the Eder house. Well, that's what we call it. See the amount of water coming? Is that, we just want to make sure that's will that take care of that?
We can't take care of an existing condition per se.
Right. I don't know if it's existing, but see, that is obviously coming off where the new house is going in.
So.
Are you downstream of the new house?
No, we're upstream, we're up.
Upstream.
We're up, yep. We're before.
So once the riprap swale is in along the side of the road, it will slow that down.
Okay.
And it will have a depth to it so that there'll be a little bit of storage in the swale itself.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it will alleviate.
And there's the new house.
New wipers.
New wiper, she says. All right, so you think once that's put in, that should help to take care of that?
Yeah, and there's also swales along the driveways so coming down the driveways.
Right.
That'll slow it down and also provide.
Okay, all right. I mean, it was coming from the top too, but, that just contributed to it. I just wanted to make sure, now that they've cleared that out there and all the trees and whatnot are gone from there, it just seems to be a little bit more. But once they put that in, that should alleviate that.
Yeah, and then also if it is exposed soil right now, once there's vegetation there.
Right,
it'll slow it down as well. It should be more absorption.
All right, good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, Christian.
It is one of the things that comment we had regarding stormwater. In order to assess the impact of the town drainage system, they need to prepare an existing conditions hydrologic model to review, to evaluate the pre to post construction effects. So right now they split up the property into about 3 catchment areas, but it's only proposed. So we need to see what the existing drainage patterns are like, because.
Would a video of the existing drainage pattern be helpful?
I think we have one.
Because it seems like there might be one.
It depends upon where.
That's just along the road.
On where the image was, or the video was taken.
It's hard to see with the wiper condition too.
Right. But what they need to do is when they're evaluating the condition of the town system, they need to take into account not just what they're contributing, but all the area tributary to the town system. So they may need to go uphill, and that may include some of the areas where this lady was talking about, and assess the total impact on the town infrastructure. I believe it's all going to an 18-inch culvert. And right now, the model that was provided is just showing it for, I believe it's a 10-year storm, 5 inches of rainfall. So they may need to examine a few other storm frequencies, say like at least the 25-year storm, probably a 1-year storm analysis would be good, because that's going to be the more frequent. That's the one that has basically 100% chance of, statistically, of occurring every calendar year.
Would you be willing to share those videos with the town?
Okay. So I think we've got Christian's comments that need to be responded to. Scott had some questions about, I think, downstream driveways and culverts, right?
Across the way,
that need to be responded to, and the line of no disturbance that we discussed earlier, right?
Yep.
So are there any other questions or comments by members of the public? Any other questions or comments by board members or professionals? If not, we'll keep the public hearing open to get responses on those issues.
Okay.
So I'll accept a motion to adjourn this public hearing to November 10th. Will that work for you, Amy?
I think
Thursday.
so. What's that? It's a Thursday?
Thursday.
I think so.
Okay. Can I have that motion? So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Amy. I think, and before we hear iPark Building A, just take a second. We need to adjourn the public hearing for Hudson Valley Logistics Center as discussed earlier at the beginning of the meeting. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. What are we adjourning? What date?
We are adjourning it to November 10th.
November
I'm
10th,
sorry,
okay.
yes.
Thank you.
I had a motion from Rich, I believe, and a second from Sarah. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
John, I just wanted to ask if any comments from the town.
you should probably send them to Jackie,
Yeah, send it to Jack.
and then she'll distribute.
And then she distributes them.
Comments or, because I'm still a tiny bit uncomfortable with that whole situation based on what Scott
Jackie,
said.
can we just, were you going to share the videos? Do you need to know how to share them with us? Oh, okay.
And all these
All
things
right, great,
happening.
thank you.
That he said, okay, yeah, this is not acceptable at this point. Like, I would just like to understand that he has weighed in, and we haven't heard anything other than her say, yeah, he came by and looked at it and everything was, okay, so.
Well, I'll inquire. I'll talk with Michelle about that, I think.
I just think in
Or
the future,
possibly
if we
Scott.
do have them weighing in,
Yep.
that we should have their comments, in hand.
Oh, ahead of time?
Yeah.
So moments ago, we did open the public hearing for iPark Building A.
Yeah.
And I think we're prepared to
Hear your work, oh, there
hear
we
your
go.
comments.
Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. I'm Troy Wojciechowski with Stantec, engineer for the applicant. Joe Cotter from National Resources. I think we bought enough time for him to show up in the next 10 minutes or so. That's the latest report, but I'll get us started. Not too many people here from the public, so I won't bore you with just the basics of the project. I'll just go through what's happened since the last we met.
Perfect.
So we submitted the subdivision. We revised our applications to include the subdivision. The parcel with the Ashley Furniture is going to be owned by Ashley Furniture, unlike all the other tenants are basically leasing from National Resources. But Ashley's going to own their parcel, so that's why the subdivision was added to the application. Other things that have happened, the wetlands were flagged by the wetland biologist and surveyed. So they're on the latest plans. They were verified by DEC in the field. And as we expected, there's very, very minor impacts to the 100-foot regulated adjacent area. The adjacent area comes across West Drive in a couple spots and nips the south-west corner entrance. So it's all paved with the exception of, I think, two new culverts that we have crossing West Drive to discharge into that drainage ditch on that side. So there's no wetland disturbances. It's all just the 100-foot regulated adjacent area. So that application has been being prepared by the wetland biologist, and we expect it to be submitted probably by the end of the week. And again, we think it's basically going to be an administrative procedure with DEC, considering that the project actually benefits the wetlands in the fact that we're proposing water quality treatment for the stormwater runoff, which isn't there now. We're actually decreasing the impervious area that contributes to the wetlands. So, we're hopeful that it'll be a pretty straightforward process. The plan I have up right now is the parking plan. That's also been a focus. We added a little more information onto it. The color coding has to do with the spaces for the individual tenant spaces. We also have a summary table that's off to the right on this sheet that shows that we're providing enough parking for all of the tenants, the existing tenants, considering that we're taking away that large parking lot to build the Ashley project. So basically what this plan shows are, parking for the tenants proximate to their entrances. So we're not proposing parking that's 900 feet away from the entrance for a tenant. So you can see basically to the north of the Ashley project, there's parking for tenants on the north end of Building 700. There's new proposed handicap spaces along the face of Building 700. And then there's additional parking for the southern tenants on the south end of Building 700. There's also a surplus of parking on the iPark property of, I think it's about 250 excess spaces. So there's still a surplus of parking, even though we're taking away the parking lot for the Ashley project. The Ashley project is basically self-parked on its lot, with the exception of 46 spaces that you can see south of Building 700. You can see that called out. If, that's per the zoning parking requirements, whether those 46 spaces will be required, we're not sure, but we're providing those spaces on the south side of Building 700. So those spaces will be, there will be a parking easement to benefit Ashley Furniture for access to those 46 spaces. The applicant has indicated that utility easements aren't required, even though this is going to be a parcel that's owned by Ashley Furniture. Apparently there's existing agreements in place to serve utilities to the warehouse.
All utilities?
Does that include water?
I thought the water.
Water's the next big item I was going to talk about.
So which utilities, when you say utilities, do you mean?
Sanitary sewer, and what we call dry utilities, gas, electric, and communications. We still have to work out the details for that. We don't usually get into that at the planning board level, where those are actually going to come from, if they're going to come internally or somewhere closer to the street. We'll have to speak to the utility providers for those. But the water was the big bombshell from my last meeting that was hijacked by the Global Foundries representative. But we've since the applicant has been working with the town, and the town has provided a will serve letter for water out of district user to connect to the town's water system. And water
You're not showing the connection yet on this plan though, right?
So how are you gonna
We
get it?
added a plan, and I can open it. Well, I can kind of show you on this plan here, even though it's not specifically shown. But it's basically coming, it's coming in about in this location, if you follow my cursor up there. So it's north along West Drive here. So we'll be running a water line down West Drive and up this side of the building. So that was a big question that was kind of dropped on us last meeting, but I think we have.
Along with that, I believe it's, some of the work, if not most of it, may be in that roadway, and I realize it's not a town road at this point, but I still recommend that like a maintenance and protection and traffic plan is provided, being that it is in a heavily traveled road, so.
Yep.
And any other regulatory approvals that may be required for that? You're going to need health department.
Yeah, health department will have to provide an approval for that water main extension, I believe. I'm trying to think of.
And then also, we still have a dialogue about fire protection, fire storage.
Correct. Right now, Ashley's building engineers are figuring out the water storage they need for fire protection. So that kind of remains to be seen. The town is basically is providing domestic water service and fire water, but not the fire storage capacity. So Ashley's building engineers are figuring that out right now.
So potentially, you're going to locate a tank on the site, correct?
Potentially a tank.
Do you have an idea where that might go?
Right now, we show on the plans up by 52, so in the northwest corner of the iPark property. But it really hasn't, it's very tentative, and I don't know if, Scott, maybe you recommended that location, or if it was kind of discussed with
Well,
National
at one point, we
Resources.
were trying to do something jointly, but I don't know that everybody wants to participate in that, and it leads to a water
That's where the
age.
battery thing was proposed.
There may still be room for both.
Oh,
But at this point, considering the development.
Health Department's going to want to know that, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that'll have to be worked out. And if it's on the Ashley parcel itself, I think it would have to be an underground tank, just because there's no room for an above-ground tank. But again, that remains to be seen once we get information back from Ashley's engineer as to that. But we have a source for water, so that's the good thing. I'm trying to think of any other.
Is this going to be something, if you need to subdivide further in the future, where this is going to continue to come up with the water? Or was that just because of this particular lot?
Well, it's for this lot in general, but, and maybe Scott can speak to this a little bit, but this water will in fact likely tie into the iPark system and provide water for other users, including possible future users on undeveloped portions of the project. But at this point, there's no agreement to that, and there's no, but I think that's the big vision for this, though.
But was the understanding that if you hadn't subdivided, that the water would have been provided through the existing agreement with Global Foundries, or is that incorrect?
that's what the dispute is between Global Foundries, iPark, and the town. Is that when the original 8 or 9 lot subdivision was approved, a Water Transportation Corporation was established that's owned by Global Foundries. The district and the agreement with the town was to provide water to all the lots. They've now taken the position that it's only for existing buildings. They thought they were going to hold the town hostage by coming here with this application in the last few meetings. That failed because of the fact that the town is taking over on the West Campus, the water line that comes down, and then Ashley can connect to that water line and provide service from us. But we now have a proceeding pending before the Public Service Commission to work out the issues and the disputes.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
I think that's all I have. I know Scott had mentioned to make sure we had a sign schedule on the plan. So we have a sign schedule on one of the detail sheets. We actually have beefed it up to show kind of more directional signs. Let me just bring this up for you. So there's an existing kind of scheme for the directional signs on the campus. And here's a photo of one. So the directional signs are going to be similar to the sign here, which is one of the existing ones. And you can see here IBM shipping and receiving. So there's going to be additions to these existing signs. This is very close. This is on the south side of building 700, I think, this sign right here. So there'll be additions to the bottom of this sign. But we're also proposing new signs along West Drive and South Drive as well that'll be of the same scheme. And we've included those details in the sign schedule in the plans.
Along with
Have a
the
sign on the
interior
building.
on-site signs as well, right?
Say it again.
Along with any on-site signs.
On the building.
Correct.
Yeah, actual.
Yeah, at this point, I don't have any information as far as.
Employee parking, stop signs, whatever, all that stuff.
Correct. Yeah, that's all in there.
And we have developed, and we're still developing it with iPark, a master parking plan, because now as indicated, they're going to take an easement for 46 spaces, and we don't want the next application to come in and no one remember that those 46 spaces are already used up by this.
Taken, right.
And that's the big rub with the parking on the site. And he's indicated that the distance from the building to the work site to the car parking isn't going to be all the way across campus.
Or you're going to have to run a trolley service. Is the point.
Troy, can you just speak to, as far as the truck parking, and And, you know, you're right up along West Drive, and I think it shows like double parking, vehicles back to back. Are you able to blow that up so the board can kind of see what it is I'm trying to?
Maybe while you're doing that, Troy, maybe one, before we get off of parking, I did want to ask a question, Troy, because I know I spoke to Michelle, just trying to understand. I mean, my recollection was that the parking, the allocation of the parking was basically 100% code-driven. And there is still a disconnect. We did ask, and I know the last round of comments, to get like some data. You know, a lot of the traffic data that we got was based on, you know, information provided by Ashley, sort of modeled off what we understood was their Edison facility. So, but we were never provided that particular information in terms of, you know, the number of employees, the amount of parking there, the truck traffic. And
for Ashley's Edison facility.
Right. Because again, the parking that's being shown, which is, I can't, what's the number, 269 spaces?
Correct, yeah.
It's much in disproportion to the traffic generation that's being provided, right? So we have peak hours with, you know, not anywhere close to that amount of traffic. So, you know, it's fivefold or more. So I think that we have to come to that, resolve it. I know my initial comment was, you know, is all the parking needed? And if it, or if it's code-driven, can some of it be banked? And maybe that's the solution to the stuff across the street. But I mean, I think should be a better understanding of that. I don't know if there is any information about how many employees Ashley intends to employ here.
Joe, you showed up in the nick of time.
Approximately 300, but there are shifts.
It's 2 shifts, I think.
Yeah, so they do 2 8-hour shifts.
So I think some of the parking demand is for the switchover between the shifts. But Brendan is asking, he said this last review letter asked for actually, you know, data from their Edison facility that apparently is similar to this one as far as the traffic generation, number of employees.
Yeah, apparently they expect 290 to 300 employees in 2 shifts, with 2/3 of them in the regular shift, and then there's 1/3 in this night shift, which they do when they assemble some of the furniture.
So just on that note, I know in other projects that are starting to come along, they have provisions for like a loop bus drop-off. Isn't it a loop bus? So with 300 employees, have you considered that at all?
The loop bus stop or loop?
Bus drop-off.
Due to the distance from the building?
Well, it could be on South Drive. It could be on South Drive, just an accommodation of public
This
transit.
is public transportation.
Yeah, to allow the workers not to
Public
have to
bus
drive
comes
there.
down, will come down South Road. Is there a stop or some area where the employees here could get on and on?
Joe, before you
It's
answer
like
that,
Amazon
we ask you to
is
come up to the podium.
anticipating employees will take the loop bus.
Oh, really?
300 employees, there must be some anticipation that some employees may want to get there to use the public transportation.
The stops now, currently, there's one in the circle where our office is at one of the entrances, and there's one for Global. I'm not sure if there's one on South Drive, but we can certainly look into it. We tried in the beginning, just as to the commuter point, we tried to see if it would be advantageous for them to have a shuttle bus from the Beacon train station, you know, at one point, and we used that to sometimes attract, you know, companies, but they didn't express much interest in that. So we did offer it.
So Troy, back to those spaces. Can you just explain it? It looks like they're stacked, so what parks in those?
Which one is that? This is the trucking. Yeah, I believe these are basically the storage of the trailers.
Right.
Are in that location.
Well, that's off to the right. I think off to the right, it says container spaces. So this shows like a double parking space. I guess it's always been a little confusing to us, whether it's a tandem truck or whether it's smaller single body trucks.
So there's a line drawn through it. That's what makes it look like it's a stacked parking space.
And it's longer than what's put in there for the container parking.
Yeah, that layout was provided by Ashley. So that's intentional that you have those stacked spaces there.
But for what exactly?
Trailers, we understand, so.
So they're going to stack trailers end to end?
That's what they asked for.
But is there length for that? Because, I mean, look at the container parking that's just to the south of that, where it says 11 containers.
Right. You have some different sizes.
Right, and then I guess the follow-up question to that would be that you're also showing snow storage here, so if it's needed, what happens during the time period when the parking is displaced because of snow? Is that going to result in, the site being in disorder, or, I mean, how is it only going to be needed seasonally?
Which area you speak?
This area down here. We have also
And then just to compound it one step further, that is the area where, that also helps to create the area that's encroaching on the road right away.
Right.
So, and I'm not even sure that we ever even did vet out exactly who, is that iPark owns West Drive?
Yes.
Okay.
So just to be clear, so Ashley, in their own planning with their own engineers, has tried to sort of max out what they could use for storage, parking, et cetera. And that was an attempt by them to get more trailers parking, in that second line. Your point about the other parking and land banking, I think, is a good one. We tend to like that. Unfortunately, in this case, all the parking is already paved, so, it's not like we're taking lawn and turning it into parking area. So if anything, we're giving back, impervious. So that's why, the land banking isn't as attractive as it would be.
Well, I think the other part of that is, again, just so that, as we finalize the review for this, that we can correlate the data that's being provided to us, because, in terms of what's being, stated as the peak hour traffic and the amount of parking that's shown and the number of employees. So
I guess it's
just trying to piece that all together.
Just from the, our relationship with Ashley is they plan on being a long-term tenant, but they are looking at the flexibility of what they do with the building. They're very concerned about a lot of their utilities and things, not only for their use, but if the use had to change. So I think they certainly are looking for this number of parking spaces. And I appreciate your point that, if you look at their peak traffic, it doesn't look like they'll ever have more than like 150 or 160, based on it. But that's something that, they're purchasing the property, and that's something they've requested based on their past experience. So we're just accommodating them as the tenant, so.
So I'm just still trying to get back to those spaces aren't the same length each in the loading dock. So it doesn't appear as though they're trailers stacked back to back, or am I missing
Well, how
something?
long are they? They're quite,
Yeah, I don't know.
they're longer than the average they're not a car parking spot.
Yeah, and I think
They're at least 24.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Instead of guessing, I think we'll go back to Ashley and ask them for that information for those spaces.
Okay. I just want to be clear on what the intent of that is, and then it leads into the next thing as far as some kind of screening of whatever is intended to be there.
Yeah, we have heavy landscape screening there. I could pull up the plan.
I mean, it's not like we're opposed to the use, it's just we want to make sure that.
No, Scott, I think we also wanted good screening too, because trust me, after seeing the Gap warehouse.
And it's all projects now. We're getting a lot of these projects starting to come in now, and, we're trying to really make sure we get this right, so.
I think we certainly, based on the work we've done, we've certainly tried to put a pretty.
Yeah, because it's one thing having cars in a parking lot, it's another thing having 13-foot high trucks lined up 100 deep 5 feet off the edge of the road, you know, it's two different things, so.
There isn't anything from a security standpoint, because I don't think, I mean, on the site plan, there isn't even fencing shown here, right? It's just.
No, actually, that doesn't require fencing around the parcel for security at this point.
They don't?
No.
So even that landscaping shows the drip line encroaching into the parking spaces. Yes?
Yeah, I think for a mature tree.
Yeah, so it's tight.
Yeah.
We don't want to see the trailers any more than anyone else, trust me.
Right, you don't, right? Because it impacts not only.
But we've tried to do it. I mean,
So is there, I mean, I don't know, besides just landscaping, is there, you know, I would think fencing of some type? You know, screen fencing
Chain
of some
link
type.
fence with slats in it. or
Slots,
something like
possibly
that.
something. But I think you should give that, it's up to the board, but I think, you know, that's a pretty long run and a lot of trailers with the end of it abutting the road. And I realize it's not a town road
double-edged sword.
now.
Sometimes the fences isn't it's more attractive, you know, it all depends. I mean, as the trees,
I
obviously.
know the back of a truck can't be attractive no matter how you slice it, so.
Look, if that's being requested, a fence to screen it, we can certainly consider it. It's not
Yeah.
something we're
Yeah,
adverse.
I don't think it's unreasonable to, I mean, again, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of trucks that are gonna be parked there absolutely should be some kind of screening, a fence with fabric or slats or something. I mean, this is also for your other tenants that are gonna be moving in.
No, 100%. We don't want to see them. I think I'm never a big fan of the slats, but some sort of a fabric's probably something a little more attractive.
Fabric seems to be popular now.
Yeah, exactly.
On top of a rigid
And
fence.
fabric behind the landscaping is like the better,
Yeah.
that's the more desired effect, I think, personally, so.
Had you considered doing the truck parking on the other side of the building, doing the car parking on that side?
We did it twice, two different ways, but I think from a safety standpoint, the location of having the trucks closer to the road where they entered and not mixing or merging the passenger cars, this was considered the safest, I think.
And the grading as well, because the site slopes from 700 down, so this is minus 4 foot from the finished floor because of the loading docks. So it just works with the grading much.
Understood. Got it.
Yeah, they did get a lot of parking, but they fought for every one of it, because obviously if we could have gotten away without more parking, we would have. It's not something we wanted to give them, but they feel that's what's needed by code. And, you know, we didn't want to sort of have
I think we're opposed to utilizing the space as long as there's proper screening. You know?
Right.
Did we get any answers, like, are there going to be jockey trucks, and as far as, is there a gatehouse, idling trucks? You know, again, we're starting to look at kind of cumulative effects of all these similar projects that are coming along, and, you know, noise, emissions. Has any of those studies been done?
Well, there's nothing to, they, unlike, let's say Frito-Lay or whatever, did not look to do a maintenance building or anything like that, nor do they seem to be very much just old school, just, you know, truck by truck. They don't seem to have sort of a mission like an Amazon where they're loading up, you know, in convoys or things like that. They haven't expressed any special needs.
I think the question was more, are there going to be big tractor trailers, or is it going to be, you know, a 12-foot truck like you'd get from U-Haul, or a van? I mean, you know, what kind of...
From our understanding, they're going to be a combination of the tractor trailers that deliver, you know, the main distribution, and then the deliveries are more big box trucks, like the big FedEx trucks. That's what's our understanding. So
That's where the double stack parking comes from.
probably,
They double stack the trucks, nose to tail, and then when they leave in order. It's a way to maximize on the parking.
So one of the other questions I had just regarding, or a couple of questions regarding circulation. Obviously, there needs to be circulation around the entire building, which there is, but the lane, the one-way lane on the north side of the building, is that going to be restricted in any way? I mean, one thing, I'm saying this because, I mean, I don't think you'd want the, you even talked about the necessity for keeping some separation and mixing. You wouldn't want the employees to come out and then drive through the truck area to exit. So I don't know if there was a gate or some other kind of control, or, you know, signs at a minimum, but maybe something more positive than that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you think about these are going to be employees. It's not a visitor heavy use. So the employees are going to be told how to get to their parking spaces. And it's not something that they're going to probably change their routine day in and day out. So basically, you know, so what I'm getting at is I don't think it's necessary to have some type of gate or
Well, I
fence.
say that also in relation to, since there is a mix of trucks, you know, there might only be suitable access for a tractor trailer along West Drive, but if it's a smaller box truck, you could really enter the site anywhere. And I'm not sure that that's advantageous either. So if there really was separation between the two.
Well, I don't think the trucks are gonna do the one way. You know, we were concerned, I mean, you know, the way we found employees, they tend to sort of take the easiest, quickest route, you know, sort of like how a mouse or a rat would in a maze. So we feel most of them are gonna come in from South Drive, frankly, rather than even weave through the site.
The same with the trucks as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the trucks are going to know their route. They're going to know what side of the building they're getting to and where they came in the day before. You know, so there's not going to be a lot of strangers that come in here, visitors, shoppers. It's not that kind of use. So I don't know that we want to get into a gate or a fence for that North Drive, to be honest.
But good signage, of course, you know, we agree.
Okay, I know you mentioned the wayfinding signing, but are there going to be any restrictive signing? You know, maybe there is, no
We could put in no trucks, you know.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking of that in relation to on-demand drive. I mean, you don't want any trucks to come in that way, right? You want them all to go down to West Drive.
Yeah, I think we have that specified. Let's see if I can find that. We do have, for instance, on South Drive, a sign 5, as the building 700, Ashley Furniture, no trucks. And then straight ahead, Ashley Furniture, shipping and receiving. So we do have some of that on there, and the same thing with sign 6. We do have a restriction on there.
We try to develop the sign schedule after our last call, you know, so.
Okay, yeah, that's it on my questions.
That's enough.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, board members?
On the right side of the building, on this picture, there was a loading and like pickup awning. Is that removed or just cut off in the picture that we were seeing?
Yes, that's still part of the project.
So I know that that's like the one-off person that wants to save the $99 delivery fee and come pick up their own couch. Is there potential in the future that then becomes more of like a thing, that people are gonna use that a lot more? They obviously own the building, they want flexibility. Is there potential?
They'd have to come back. We've been specific with them about that. So if they wanted to change that or expand that, they'd have to come back to your board.
Okay.
So.
Anything else from board members and professionals? So based on...
I'm sorry, one more thing with the signing.
Yes.
I know, I don't think they have anything, but as far as the trucks, Joe, that are going to come out on West Drive.
Right.
I know we want to get them to Lime Kiln, to I Park Boulevard.
Right.
So there should be some signage. We're not going to, we can't reconfigure this intersection, but there's got to be signage, you know, all trucks to I Park
That's a good,
Boulevard.
actually, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Because the last thing we want is the trucks to make the right.
We don't want them making a right, yes.
You know, I think that's a very good point.
Okay. Well, so while we still have a few things, I guess, that you're going to check on and add to the plan, I think based on tonight's meeting, it looks like we've satisfied the public in general. So unless there's some objection, I think we can go ahead and close the public hearing. Could I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great.
Thank you for that, and we'll try to do our best to, but it is tricky when you have someone who wants the parking. It's a funny request that
Just
they want
what's it
more
for,
parking
that's
than
all.
they need.
Yeah, what's it for? Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if there's, yeah. Yes.